Hello everyone, I'm Aswathy and you are with me on ELT series Module 3, that is Major Approaches and Methods in ELT. Part 3, the Audiolingual Method. For better understanding of this Part 3, ALM or Audiolingual Method, please do watch Part 1 and Part 2, that is Grammar Translation Method and Direct Method. Now to ALM or Audiolingual Method. It is known by different names like the army method, informant method, oral method, the new key method. It shares several aspects with the direct method. Both direct method and ALM were a reaction to the perceived failures of the grammar translation method. It originated in America. Audiolingual method strongly dominated the field of second language learning in the 1950s and 1960s. It is a method of teaching English which emphasizes the learning of listening and speaking skills before the mastery of reading and writing skills. So what's expected is that the learners listen to the language first. They learn to speak the language and later learn the other two skills, that is reading and writing. Now let's see how this method emerged from the background of ALM. The method is product of three historical circumstances. Works of American linguists in the early decades of the 20th century, such as Bloomfield. American linguists in the early decades of the 20th century studied indigenous languages spoken in the US. However, because of the lack of trained native teachers who would provide a theoretical description to the native languages, linguists had to rely on observation. For the same reason, for the first time, a strong focus on the oral language was developed in the linguistic studies. Works of behavioral psychologists, the second one, such as that of B.F. Skinner. Behaviorism strongly believed that all behavior, including the learning of languages, is learned through repetition and positive or negative reinforcement. Now, the third one is the outbreak of the World War II. During World War II, America had to post soldiers all over the world. Therefore, it was necessary to provide these soldiers with at least basic verbal communication skills in English. So the government commissioned the American universities to develop a unique language course for the army officials that would focus on oral skills. The project was established in 1942 as the Army Specialized Training Program, ASTP. It was also called the informant method as it employed a native speaker of the language as the informant and a linguist. The informant served as a source of language for imitation, and the linguist supervised the learning experience. The new and emerging method based on behaviorism and oral approach and repetition were admirably suited to teach en masse soldiers. So, because of the influence of military, early versions of audiolingual method came to be also known as the army method. Professor Nelson Brooks coined the term audiolingual method in 1964. Now to the characteristics of ALM or audiolingual method. So let's first see the aims and objectives of this method. Aims: to use language or English in the same way as the native speaker uses it. Focus on the communicative aspect of the language with special emphasis on the listening and speaking skills. Now to the main objectives. The objectives are to develop listening comprehension and also to develop accurate pronunciation. Now to the theoretical base of ALM. It is the first method in ELT that is with a solid theoretical base. It is based on structuralism, the language theory, and also behaviorism, the psychological theory. Now, theories one by one. Theory of language underlying audiolingual method is structuralism, as I told. Following characteristics of structuralism are important from audiolingual point of view. Speech is primary. That is, speech is fundamental to language than the written form. Language structure and form are more significant than meaning. Language is structured like a pyramid. That is, the linguistic level is a system within a system. Now to learning theory, behaviorism. The theory of learning underlying audiolingual method is behaviorism. Following characteristics of behaviorism are important to audiolingual point of view. We or human beings learn a language in the same way as other habits are learned, through the process of training or conditioning. Repetition leads to stronger habit formation and greater learning. Language learning is the outcome of stimulus, what is taught, response, that is, learner's reaction to what is being taught, and reinforcement, that is, approval or disapproval of teacher. It is a chain of like stimulus, response, reinforcement chain. Positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement are important in learning. Positive reinforcement helps the students to develop correct habits. Negative reinforcement is also important as mistakes should be avoided as they might lead to bad habit formation. Next, let's see 5 slogans enumerated by William Moulton of Princeton University, which forms the foundation of audiolingual method. They are: language is speech, not writing. Language is a system of habits. Teach the language, not about the language. A language is what native speakers say, not what someone thinks they ought to say. Languages are different. Now to the features and techniques of ALM, audiolingual method. It treats each skill, L, S or W, separately. The skills are taught in the order L, S or W. All reading materials are introduced orally. Writing at the early stage is conformed to transcription of dialogues already learnt. The primary focus is on listening and speaking. The language items are represented through dialogues, which provides an opportunity for learners to mimic, practice, memorize language. Dialogues contain common structures and vocabulary used in everyday communication. Dialogues are memorized line by line. Learners imitate teacher or tape to acquire native speaker-like pronunciation. Drills, especially pattern drills, are used extensively. Group and individual drills are practiced. The idea is for the students to practice the particular construct until they can use it spontaneously. The teacher is expecting a particular response, and not providing the desired response will result in a student receiving negative feedback. This type of activity for the foundation of language learning is in direct opposition with communicative language teaching. Here, drills help in overlearning and it in turn helps in automaticity. Primary teaching aid used is a language laboratory, which is mainly used for pattern practice. Tape recorders are also used. The method avoids or discourages mother tongue in the classroom, though not rigidly as the direct method. So we are talking about drills in ALM. Now, types of drills used in audiolingual classroom. Drill is a classroom technique based on behaviorist viewpoint of learning and is used to practice new language items. It consists of the repetition of oral patterns and structures. It involves the teacher modeling a word or a sentence and the learners repeating it, individually or in groups. There are different types of drills used in ALM. It includes repetition drills, replacement, restatement, expansion, inflection, chain, transposition, transformation, dialogue completion, question answer integration, substitution, multiple slot substitution, etc. The chart given gives you a detailed account of the different drills, important drills that has been used in ALM. The first one is a repetition drill. The learners repeat the line of a dialogue uttered by the teacher. Learners imitate what the teacher says, can be carried out with the whole class, smaller groups or with individual learners. Advantages of this drill is that it helps learners gain confidence, helps the teacher draw learners' attention to phonological features, connected speech and sentence stress. Now to the next one, that is substitution or replacement drill. The learners repeat the line of a dialogue uttered by the teacher by substituting or replacing the cue given by the teacher in the proper place. The element of structure being practiced is changed whenever necessary or needed. Learners and teachers also use audio visual or visual prompts in substitution drills. It makes drilling fun and dynamic. Teachers also assign learners with the role of prompter, making the drilling completely led by students or learners. Single slot substitution drill is a drill in which the teacher utters a dialogue and provides a single word or phrase as a cue. In multiple slot substitution drill, the teacher utters a dialogue and provides more than one cue. That's why it's called multiple. Now the question answer drill. It gives learners practice in answering questions. Learners are required to quickly answer a question posed by the teacher. It also provides learners with written prompts and make them work in pairs or small groups to ask questions to each other. Also done through the use of cards and also technology resources. Now the expansion drill. The learners produce longer sentences by repeating the main structure first and then by expanding it by putting the cue phrase in the proper place. To the chain drill next, the teacher begins the chain by asking a question to the learner. He or she responds, then turns to peer sitting next to him or her and asks a question, and the chain continues. So these are some of the examples of drills. Hope you understood different types of drills. Now to the role of teacher, learner and learning material in ALM. Learner's role first. Passive. Learners are passive. They don't have any control over the content or the learning material or the method of learning. The learners are mere imitators of teacher's model. Their sole objective is to follow teacher's direction and respond as precisely and as promptly as possible. To the teacher's role now. Teacher is active. Active role here. Teacher-dominated method is this, and directs the whole learning process. Teacher is the person who directs the whole learning process, provides a good model for imitation. So students try to imitate teacher whole through the process. Now the role of instructional materials. Instructional materials include a structured sequence of lessons, then dialogues, drills and other practice materials. Tape recorders, audio-visual aids and language lab are extensively used in this method. Classroom procedure. Let's see how ALM works in a classroom. Extensive oral instruction is done in classrooms in the target language or in English. Model dialogues are introduced by the teacher, imitated and repeated by learners. Then again, correction of mistakes, if any, is done by the teacher. Dialogues are memorized by the learner. Dialogues are adapted by learners and acted out in the class. That's the second stage. In third stage, key structures are selected by the teacher. The learners learn it through pattern drills and practice. Then the next stage, textbooks for reading and writing activities are introduced by the teacher. Teacher monitors follow-up activities in the language lab. Advantages and disadvantages of audiolingual method. First, advantages. It is the first method in ELT grounded in solid theory of language learning. It helps to teach a large group of learners. Emphasis is on listening and speaking skills. Emphasis is also given to syntax, effective use of audiovisual aids, then results in accurate native-like pronunciation. These are the advantages. Now to the disadvantages of audiolingual method. 4 language skills, that is L, S or W, they are not given equal importance. Reading and writing is usually neglected in these classrooms in actual practice. A teacher-dominated method is ALM. This is again a disadvantage. A mechanical method, that means it's not a creative method. It stresses on drilling and memorization over functional and organic use of language. That's why it is a mechanical method. Now the learner is passive whole through the process, as he or she has little control over learning. Tedious and boring experience for learners. Importance to language form and not meaning of language, then prefers accuracy to fluency. Just opposite of the communicative method. Now the prose, poetry, composition, all these items cannot be taught through this approach. It's very difficult. Now only intelligent or bright students can take benefit of this approach. So these are some of the disadvantages of this method. I'm sure you understood different aspects of this method, characteristics, features and advantages, disadvantages. Now let's see why this method didn't work or didn't become popular. The decline of ALM. The first reason is the change in the American linguistic theory in after the 1950s or in the 60s. It questioned theoretical underpinnings of this method. In actual practice, the students failed to transfer the skills acquired in classroom to real-life communication outside the classroom. Noam Chomsky rejected this approach. He questioned both structural linguistics and behavioral psychology. ALM was against his theory of transformational grammar, which stated language is creative and generated and language is not a habit. Though as a method it fails to achieve its goals, some of its features still find a place in ELT classroom around the world. So that is all about ALM or audiolingual method. We'll meet soon with another method or approach in the ELT session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Take care.